Hello, everyone. So it's been a little bit because this particular guest that we have has been very busy, very, very busy, but he is your favorite guest, your favorite person to have in here. And I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about this question actually came in by request. And I know that it's a hot issue. I know that you guys are going to have something to say about it. So I'm just glad he's here so I don't have to take the smoke myself. So all that said, I'm excited to have this chat. Alex, my dear husband, have you been here since you became my husband?
I have not. This might be my first time back.
Shut the front door.
Yeah, this might be my first time officially as the husband.
Can we talk about the evolution of your growth on this podcast?
I know.
People
from
can
its
listen
inception,
back.
like from the inception of us to now. Yeah,
It's
husband,
a whole thing. No, before
baby on the way.
Yes.
Yeah,
Full
from
circle.
just a regular guest.
I literally
seemingly
feel
regular
like
guest.
Seemingly regular guest. Yes. I think that's for those of you who are new to all of this. Alex is here. He's my husband. He's my Mr. Fella. And at the very beginning of sort of my divorce, journey, at least where I was living it publicly, I was very private for a little over a year. But part of why I decided to share the divorce journey was because I knew that I was moving on in many different ways. Mm-hmm. And at the time, obviously, I had no idea what Alex was going to be to me at all. But he was one of my early guests on here just because I met him and he was cool. And he was like one of the first people I met in LA who had a really good idea around like what it means to change your community. And he was also going through his own starting over journey at the time. That's what you were talking about here, right? I think we talked about you starting over, shifting your friends.
Mm-hmm. That was probably the first episode where I was like, figuring out my friend group, being open to relationships, like establishing who do I want around me.
And how do you want to show up
and
in
how
the
do
world?
I want to show up, all that stuff.
Yeah, and that was years ago now, almost 3+ years ago.
Yeah.
And then after that, you came back and we talked about us dating.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about us being engaged. Oh, and then we talked about baby and wedding. And now you're my husband.
I know. Now we're here on the other side of it. It's so crazy.
So bananas. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
You and your podcast voice.
I have to at least one time. At least one time every time.
So y'all, we are excited because the conversation that came in is, as you all know, we've been living in a challenging, complex, I'm not really sure what word, friction-filled political climate.
Those
and you've heard
work.
Me, all those work, right? And I've talked about that a little bit in a couple of chats ago. But, what I wanted to talk about was a lot of people were asking me, what is it like being in an interracial relationship during a time where race has become such a publicly divisive thing? I say, and honestly, let's be honest, race has always been divisive.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not new.
It's not new.
It's not new. But I think because of maybe social media, the amplification of it is more in your face. It's harder to ignore, or it's harder to compartmentalize.
I mean, that definitely lends itself to a
whole other conversation,
broader topic where it's like a lot of things have been things for a long time, but are seemingly new. But just because we have more access to information more readily every day, it's like, oh, when did this become a thing? It's like, no, this has been a thing. You just didn't hear about it because internet.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true because we just watched The Help this weekend with Allie. And when we watched that movie, which is great. If you guys haven't seen it, Octavia Spencer won a Best Supporting Actress award for it. Shout out Octavia. We love you so much. And in that movie, they talk of the civil rights movement, but I mean, they were in the deep South Mississippi. And even though that's not the only place racism exists, okay, but they were in the deep South Mississippi, and they were talking about how these skirmishes were happening away, and they were hearing about it just from the news, but everything in their world was kind of seemingly as it was. And I think that is part of why, it feels like race is everywhere all of a sudden. But the truth is, it's always been everywhere.
Right.
It's just that now we can't escape having it in our face the way that we used to, which is a good thing.
Right. I mean, also when you're in that bubble and you don't see what it looks like on the outside every day, regularly, very clearly, you think that this is the norm. But then when you see that there are different ways of being, you start to realize what I'm experiencing in my daily life, like there's another way.
Yes, there's another way. And then if you are on the side of being the receiver or feeling marginalized, as a person, when you start having these amplified conversations, it lends itself almost to a healing in some ways, because you realize, oh, like I'm not the only one, and there's a name for how I'm being treated, and I have a right to respond this way, and that leads to change. So all that being said, in our chaotic, divisive times, or at least what's being put in front of us, the truth is, not much has changed. We're all kind of doing our best every single day, but in these times where, things are heightened, one of the things that I received questions about in my DMs is, what is it like being in a relationship with someone that is interracial, especially knowing that, my previous relationship was also an interracial relationship. And, I think people have a lot of questions, not a lot of questions, curiosities. Sure. Because what's great is my community is very respectful about boundaries and all that. But there are curiosities, about, Nicole, do you always date white guys? What is that about for you? Or what is it? Because also everyone thinks that you are the sum of everything they've seen online, when that is, without dating me, 1/4 of my life. Right. So literally, I've only been on the internet for 25% of my life. So right. Even if you've known me that entire time, you only know 25% of my being. Right. And that is a brief evolution, right, of who I am. Right. So, little do most people know, I dated almost exclusively Black people, and Black men prior to. So it's just like things like that. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what it looks like to be in an interracial relationship, in the age of political divisiveness, what it was like in our home on election day, and the days thereafter. What does it look like raising our kid, in this climate, knowing that we've got a child coming into the world who will be mixed race, and especially seeing that come up as a conversation for Kamala. Sure. That blew me away. I actually thought that it was going to be, we are not going to talk about her race.
Oh, of course we're going to talk about her race.
I really thought people knew better. Am I giving them too much credit?
Yes. Yes. Frankly, yes. There's no way to not talk about race.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is, though. You know what I mean? Like, you can. No, there isn't. No,
there's no way.
It just feels like such a cheap shot that I thought everybody would know would be a problem. What we're talking about is, if you did kind of have your head out of the sand, it was a hot topic for almost the entire, election, where people were like, yeah, is she Black or is she South Asian Indian? Right. And why is she pretending to be Black? Because they think it helps her vote versus being South Asian. And I was like, she's both. And she went to an HBCU, historically Black college and university, Howard, like the Harvard of HBCUs. No shade to the rest, because I don't want people coming for me. I'm from DC, so it's gonna give what it's gonna give. But and then aside from that, by the America's own definition, it used to be written into law that if you were 1/8 Black, you were Black. So it's like one of those things where it's like, all of a sudden we trying to take her Blackness, like, and also, since when do we define someone's race for them? It's weird, right? So, but yet it was a constant conversation, like, yeah, as if she's not allowed to be. And also, like, what does that have to do with anything?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Yeah. I literally don't know.
I don't know.
I literally don't know. They're trying. It's trying to devalue or devalue, or trying to like minimize her, how she connects to the audience.
I don't know, like, using her intent, like
questioning her intent and her character, and it's just like trying to paint this picture that it's just like not a thing.
It was so weird, and it was also weird because for someone, an audience, whomever that is not Black, to question someone else's Blackness is weird. Like, you don't own the definition of Blackness to even say.
I mean, that would almost be like, what's Trump's background? Like, isn't he from like parents of immigrants? Or
I mean, everyone is. None of us are from here.
Right. I mean, that would be like,
here.
That'd be like, wow. So Trump's identifying as white, but isn't
he really an Irish
American?
Isn't he really
like an Irish, like a son of Irish immigrants or wherever? It's like, but he's just claiming to be white to
identify with rural America.
Base. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? It's like,
but
it doesn't go that way.
It doesn't go that way, and we sometimes should ask ourselves why. We should ask ourselves why. So, let's take it back to move it forward, since we're already kind of deep in the politics stuff. What's your background?
My background?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm Hungarian, Polish, Russian, Jewish.
Okay. And that. So, and this is important also. I think a lot of people minimize that we catch, all white people, right? People from the mountain of Caucasus, right? Caucasians, right? As being just like a catch-all bucket. But a lot of people usually know their background, like on some level, like I'm Italian or I'm Polish. And a lot of times that has to do with what you grew up with. Like my grandmother made these dishes, or, a lot of times you can look at a Thanksgiving table and kind of figure out how our meal's a little different. Like we have pierogies, or we have, kielbasa, or we have, just different things that identify, right? So how close are you to your background of Hungarian, Russian, whatever? Do you have any recollection of, like, is it grandparents? Is it great grandparents? Is it like, eighth grandparents? Like,
yeah, I mean, my grandfather, Steve, he was from Hungary. And
like 100% he immigrated to
America from Hungary during World War II.
Oh, wow.
Like escaped, the whole World War II situation. I think he escaped from a camp and fled to America.
Wow.
And then that's kind of like how my family ended up here. But yeah, he was 100%, Hungarian.
Spoke Hungarian, grew up and born in Hungary.
As far as I know. I mean, I didn't know him very long, because he died when I was young.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess I'm second generation.
Which is so interesting, because I think that, I mean, obviously your family's been in LA for what, like 50 plus years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, which is bananas to think. But in reality, as a Ghanaian, you're right, because I'm first generation, to me, like, you're Hungarian. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, if your grandparent was speaking that full language or whatever, yes, I get that. Just like, even though I was born here, I'm like, I am American also, but I'm Ghanaian.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's so interesting, because for you wouldn't necessarily go out and say, I'm Hungarian. You're like, oh, and I'm an American from LA.
Right. Even though my last name is actually a Hungarian word.
Entirely.
I mean, Star, Chilog. I'm probably saying it wrong, but I mean, whatever at this point. It's how I say it.
Yeah. And is like literally directly connected to your grandpa.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'll never forget when I went to Israel on birthright, and they have a big wall there of all the last names of the families that were, victims to the Holocaust. And my family, the family name Chilog is
up there.
It's
I'm too pregnant for this. I'll just start crying for no reason. I'm too pregnant for this. But it's one of those things where that's what I mean when I say, like, so, I mean, you are the child of immigrants. You know what I mean? Like, directly connected in a way where, an immigrant sat at your table for meals. Yeah. So okay, so that's your background, right? Yeah. So, and yet, we get to America, and I think we all go through a little bit of an American assimilation, whether we like it or not, right? It's just part of it, right? Yeah. But when I think you're first or second generation, you're really, really close to it. And I also think certain cultures hold their culture tighter, right? Like, so Italians, you could be like 10th generation, and it's like, y'all Italian.
Right.
Like, it is a thing. It rolls deep, right?
Right, totally.
So, okay, so knowing that to be your background, did you witness interracial relationships in your family? Like, your parents are all of your parents? Because I'm looking at you right now. You have gray hair, but I like it. It's salt and peppery hair.
Thank you.
Yeah, salt and peppery hair and blue eyes. And like, you look by physical appearance white presenting, and Hungarian is white, in terms of the root of it or whatever, but white presenting. So I imagine your parents or your family don't have any mixing in there, but do you have any in your background at all?
Do I have any?
Yeah, like, what were your great grandparents married to anyone like Indian, or do you know in your background, or is it just mostly white?
Oh, I mean, my grandparents all married within the race.
Okay,
like,
got it.
Yeah, but my aunt was married to an Iranian guy.
Okay.
And pretty much all of my cousins, well, except for one, but like, there's several interracial relationships in my family.
Wow, so as recently as just not like last generation.
Yeah, like, it's not even like a new concept in my family. Like, it's very regular. Like, my cousin, who's Iranian, half Iranian, half white, is married to a Hispanic woman, Mexican, I think. My brother is married to a Chinese woman. I'm married to a black woman. It's like, interracial relationships, I think, have, at least in my family, it's just very regular. It's not even, nobody skips a beat about it.
Do you
it doesn't
think that's
matter.
Regional? Because, like, I have to say, so one of the number one questions that I receive from Black women, or when I'm in groups of Black women, is like, I've never dated a white guy before. Like, that's actually, like, I hear that pretty often, and not in a negative way. Not trying to speak for all Black women. I always try to say I am not the mouthpiece for all Black women or all Black people, but just in the circles I've been, I've never dated a white man before. And then sometimes they'll say, I couldn't see myself doing it. which we'll get into in a second because I understand that.
I get it.
Like, I really understand that. And we'll get into that, in a sec. But then they'll also, say like, and they don't know anyone who has. I think it's becoming more common because frankly, it was illegal for a long time. So, and a long time meaning like most of us have parents that remember the time when it was illegal. And all of us, if we have our grandparents still and we're in our 30s and 40s, have grandparents that absolutely by law could not have married interracially. So it is a new thing. So, but you grew up in California.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that regionally part like kind of played into it? It was just like.
Maybe.
And it never felt weird for you? Did you ever think it would be an issue if you brought home a black girl?
No. I never thought twice about it. My parents have never said anything off.
And
when I brought anybody
funny?
Home. They never act funny. No, it was never an issue. It was just like, here's a person that I'm into.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're all meeting and we're all just people. Like, it doesn't matter, you know? Like, there's definitely certain cultural differences
for sure
that will be talked about at some point, but it's more talked about in terms of general, like, just conversation.
Sure.
Just getting to know each other, not necessarily like butting heads culturally.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like never really been an issue.
Did you ever worry for you as an issue that it might affect your ability to work, or that you would have to deal with awkwardness, or that you'd be receiving racism, or that you would, like, people might question sort of like, does he think he's black? Because you'll hear that sometimes, like, because you work in music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and there's stereotypes around like credibility
I have two
fetishizing.
Things. So I have a couple things to say about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So one, me, I just don't care. Like, I like.
Yes, I do know.
You know what I mean?
Care,
like,
yes.
I know, like, I'm gonna do what feels right to me and what I want to do, and I don't care. Like, you can say whatever you want to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna deter me from doing what I know is right or what I feel like I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Say whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like, does he think he's black or something?
But you know what? Like, you work in the industry, right? And like, and you work with a lot of black artists. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's as a performer or as a producer, that is something that comes up a lot. And just we're having that type of transparent conversation. People like, do you have a black girl for credibility? Like, does that give you street cred? Does that give you cool points? Does that make it easier? Is that part of the dynamic? Because there's a fetishizing that I think a lot of black women worry about when they're in relationships with white men. Like, am I here because of a stereotype or a belief around what that black woman may represent based on something that isn't, because we're our own individual people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
I mean, like I said, I've dated people other than black women.
Sure.
But I don't know if it's just like cultural similarities or things that I like align with thought process wise.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't know, I'm trying to, and I feel like no matter how you answer this, somebody's going to have a gripe with it.
And they are. So, which is why we're just going
to
to have our conversation. Understand that there are people on this planet that and we both know this, that will never be okay with it because it just exists.
Right.
Like, there's no getting around it. I think that, like, what I'm trying to do here, for those who are listening also and our friends, is just invite people into the reality of our conversation around it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because I know that for me, I've dated different white men. I've dated, to answer it first, right, for myself I've dated different white men. I've dated men of all ethnicities. I've dated exclusively black men. There are, just to answer, I guess, what I was saying before, reasons. There are things that I miss about dating black men that will never be present in our relationship. And I've said this to you before. This is not new. It came up after the election. There is something about a innate DNA-driven comfort that comes with knowing that you don't have to explain a certain emotion, a certain experience that only a black man can understand, black person can reconcile. Like, obviously I'm speaking from a heterosexual, background, but either way, when I walk by another black woman and that we are experiencing a collective loss as a community, there is an understanding there that can never be permeated by anyone else. Just like why, kind of like, this is going to sound as cheesy as it is, but the emotion of eating your mom's recipe, like, it's just there's a depth there that is just different. It hits a different part of your soul.
Right.
Now, I've never been married to or created a child with, or had an extended relationship with a black man. I've only dated, for a year, stuff like that. So and I can honestly, I've never fallen in love with, you know, a Black man. I love my Black men, right? And protect them and hold them and elevate them, you know, but I have never fallen in love with romantically in a relationship deeply with a Black man. And so do I know if that sort of bond would supersede what I have with you? I don't know. I just can't speak to it, you know? And do I feel a lack that is constant and difficult when I'm with you? Absolutely not. Like, you find ways to comfort me that I just could not even, like, it feels like it's a gift from God alone, you know? So, but I am also aware, because I'm not naive, you know what I mean, that there's probably something there that I may not know about. So I try, kind of like carrying a baby. We've talked about it, where it's like, I love my babies, you know, like I'm so blessed to have my kids, and I don't see them differently from the one that I'm carrying. However, I will never take away that the experience of carrying a child is different, but it's just different. You know what I mean? But the love is love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So that's what I mean when I say, like, I've dated people from all over the spectrum, you know, and it's just.
Yeah. I mean, I've dated people from all different backgrounds. And I think at a base level, I mean, this is not the sole thing, but like, obviously, but like on a base level, you're attracted to what you're attracted to. One.
You think Black women are beautiful?
I think Black women are beautiful.
Like disproportionately so? Say aloud into the mic, please. lean in forever.
Disproportionately so. I'll enunciate.
Really? Tell me why.
I think Black women are beautiful.
Right.
So, I mean, you're attracted to what you're attracted to. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of being into what you're into.
But that's you also think, to be fair, you also think other women are beautiful.
I
like,
do. I also think
eyes.
Asian women are beautiful, and Hispanic women are beautiful.
Right.
And, you know, you're into what you're into. But, you know, that's just on a base level.
Sure.
But that's to say, like, I've dated Black women that I'm like, I can never imagine being with you. It's not like I date.
I hope they're not listening.
You know what I mean?
I felt that.
I'm sorry. That's the truth, though. It's not because like, oh, you're Black, I'm gonna be with you.
Right.
It's like, you know, it's like
personality.
Personality always.
Sure.
Like, I've found somebody who is supportive and smart and, you know, like completes me, and like, you know what I mean, like we support each other in the best ways, and we work together the best way. And
I'm also not like, knowing some of your exes and some of the conversations, I'm different from them.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Just like you're different from some of my exes. Like the reason we're married is you rise above character wise, not looking at the shell. Like I always say, if God's going to send me the gift that I want, I'm not going to complain about the wrapping paper. Right. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, no, it doesn't look like what I thought it would, but there's diamonds inside. Right. That's stupid. You know what I mean?
Right. So I've met this amazing person, and it's like, I feel like it's like almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, I've met this amazing person, you're Black, and it's like, okay, but to say that, like, I don't know, like, not trying to fetishize a Black woman. So should I not be with you because you're Black?
Right.
Because out of fear of fetishizing.
But that's the fear that people want to put into, I think, some people.
And I think the difference is, I think fetishizing is if you're going to date a Black woman, sleep with Black women, but you have no intention on really being with a Black woman.
That's right. And and if you're coming into it with expectations. And if you think Black women can't tell, that's the other part too, is Black women know when we're being fetishized.
Right. If you're as a white guy, if you're getting with a Black woman because you expect her to be hypersexualized and you expect her to be all these things, all the stereotypes of what Black women are perpetuated to be, that's where you find problems.
Yes, like, you will.
Yes, you will.
Yes, you will.
Yes, you will. But like, you're just like a person. And
if anything, I'm like, I don't meet some of those expectations, much to your dismay. I'm boring.
Right. I mean, like how many times have people be like, oh, Nicole, you're one of the good.
Oh yes, you've said one of the good ones. Yeah, you know, like I mean, those stereotypes, and I fight back against it all the times. Like I will have people who assume that I am a certain type of Black person, whatever that means, based on my speech pattern, based on, like, I'll have people who will say, oh, I know you're African, but you don't have an accent. And I'm like, I'm sorry, say what? You know what I mean? Or where are you from? You speak so well. Right. And I'm like, school? Like, I don't, like, what do you even say? Like, what does that even mean? You know, like, it's just crazy what some of the people, what people say. And that, I guess, rolls into relationships, you know, is that people think that on some level, you know, it becomes a big focal point, you know? Now, granted, and this is going to be, I'm just, again, we're keeping it all the way real. I don't know if I've ever told you this. I do sometimes wonder what it would be like if I'd had I love the Black love story. Is there a white love story? I know that sounds, I don't know if that's racist, but like, do you ever wonder what it would be like if you were with a white woman? Like, I don't know. Black love is a hashtag. You know, it's a whole show. It's a whole thing because Black love is such a beautiful thing because it was outlawed. We like weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to love out loud. We weren't allowed to own. It's more than just a companionship thing. It's almost like a protest, you know, against our right to live. You know what I mean? Like, and so the display of, and it's also a protest against imagery that is often put out there, which is like the broken Black family, which all these things are so deeply not true statistically, you know? So Black love to me is so beautiful because it's a truth, you know? And obviously I don't have the conventional Black love relationship. You know, I am Black and I am in love, but you know, unfortunately you are not holding up your end of the role.
Sorry, I dropped the ball on that one.
Drop the ball on that, you know, like lack the melanin. But you know, so I look at that in like a way that's just, it fills my soul because it's comforting to see, you know, but I know there isn't a white love experience. Have you ever thought like that you might be with a white woman, or would it be different if you're a white woman? Because it is a thought that occurs to me, but I never asked you if it ever occurs to you. Like this moment would be different if I was with a white girl?
I mean, I've dated white women.
Yeah, I know that.
There are white women who are really attractive too.
Is it different?
It's different.
Really? Tell me more about that.
I think I don't know
from
if
your
it's
experience.
From
yeah, because not
experience.
everyone's the same. We're not going to put people in buckets.
Right.
Yeah.
I think generally my experience with Black women is that Black women can be more forthright, which I very much appreciate because you know that's how I am.
It's because I think that, and again, we are generalizing, y'all. So for those who are listening, we're generalizing. But your experience.
And I've met white women and Black women who are complete opposites to what I'm saying right now.
Exactly.
So this is just total
but
general.
The Black women that you have been inclined towards.
Generally speaking, the Black women that I have been around or been involved with are, maybe that's just because my personality type, that's what I gravitate to. Also, I don't know what it is, East Coasters. Specifically,
really,
the Black women that I have been involved with have all been from the East Coast.
Well, that explains the forthright part.
The forthright.
We don't play out there.
Right. So I don't know if it's a Black thing or an East Coast thing. I can't really tell you which, but I really appreciate it.
Right.
Because I am very much a straight shooter, straightforward, like cut out the fluff, just tell me what's up, be forthright, you know? And I very much appreciate that kind of attitude. And that's something you don't see as much in some other cultures. Like, you know, in some other cultures, there's more of like, I don't know, they just go about it different.
Very demure, very cutesy.
Very
very mindful.
I don't need demure cutesy.
That's just your preference.
That's just my preference.
Sure.
And so, you know, like, I don't know. That's just been my experience. And it's like, okay, if this is this is just
what it is for you.
This is where it is.
So let's talk privilege then, because one of the things that I run into, you know, being a Black woman in interracial relationships is that sometimes I have to tap my partner's privilege in order to be, which is like a gift. First of all,
I'm happy to give it.
Yeah, I know. It's the least you can do, sir.
It's the least.
Okay. When I tell you, like, you know, like in a non-jokingly way, people who maybe look at interracial relationships and not understanding that, you know, that is something I get to have. Like if I were to date a Black man, I would have a whole bucket of concerns I would have to worry about every single night.
Right.
Is he coming home? Will he be safe? Is he seen as a threat? Is he going to there are just so many things that come along with Blackness, particularly the burden and struggle and weight unnecessarily that Black men have to carry that I don't have to carry in partnership. That is not lost on me, right? And I also get the perks of your whiteness being available to me, you know, and my family as a privilege. Not why I'm here, you know, but it's like I said, it's the least you can do. You know? Like, bring what you got. Like I'm a good cook. Bring what you got to the table.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that being said, in our relationship, you know, if you were with a white woman, you guys would have a unified privilege, you know, that exists in this world.
And on the flip side, if I was with a white woman, I would have a list of things that I would not have to worry about.
So tell me about that. Like
you
what?
know, I mean, for one, there was that whole incident with Allie that happened.
Oh, talk about it. We love a story.
Oh yeah, she and this incident totally flipped the way that I was like, oh man, I have to change my thinking because. Basically, she went to school after Ash Wednesday, and
I know
listen, that stuck with me and still sticks with me,
right?
Because that was actually like
Yeah, I mean, you were
thing.
like, I mean, you've been raising Allie now for years,
right?
Like,
and so
her only dad.
Ash Wednesday came. She missed it,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted. It was like Thursday now, and she was like, "Well, I want to do the cross thing on my head."
To be clear, she was in
Fifth
elementary
grade.
school, fifth grade. Yeah,
fifth grade, and she was like, "I want to do the cross thing on my forehead," and I was like, "Kid, I think you missed the day. Like, it's not going to make sense."
She doesn't even understand Ash Wednesday. She just used to go to an Episcopalian school, and
she doesn't understand it. She just knows, you do a cross thing on your forehead, and then it washes off by itself. Whatever. Big sister was around, and was like, "All right, you want to do this, this cross thing on your forehead?" And they drew it in marker.
Oh, geez. Because she also didn't get it.
She didn't
know it was for those of you who aren't familiar with the religious, aspects of it, Ash Wednesday is the burnt palms that were supposedly representative of what Jesus walked on his way to being crucified. So in different religious institutions, Catholicism, Episcopalianism, they'll burn palm ashes and then place a cross on your forehead. And you'll use that, you'll wear that through the day as sort of a reminder of kind of the journey, Right. And so in Allie's previous private schools, that was something that she participated in as part of chapel. And that was all she recollected from it, was that I had ash on my forehead.
Right.
She did not recollect anything else.
Right.
So she was like, well, I don't have ash, but I do have a Sharpie.
They have a Sharpie. So, and she was still with the thought of like, yeah, this is just going to come off on its own, and I was like, hey, I really don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you should do this. But
our parenting style is very much like, we lay it out in front of them and we say, if you want to learn from experience, have at it.
Oh, for sure. And Nicole was out of town.
I was.
At this point. So business. I was kind of holding down the fort. And I was like, I really don't think this is a good idea. And, I wake up in the morning. She's got the, crossing on her forehead, drawn on
She's
Sharpie.
Strong-willed too.
Strong-willed.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I'll let you go to school. You're going to look real stupid. I told her, I was like, I guarantee you will be the only one with this on your forehead, and you're gonna feel dumb.
And she was in public school at the time.
And she was like, no, it's gonna be fine. Blah, blah. I was like, okay, you go ahead. And so she went to school, and then I, picked her up later that day, and I was like, so, how'd it go? I was like,
universal parent question, how'd that go for you?
How'd that go? Like what, did anybody else have it on their forehead? And she's like, no. I'm like, how'd that feel? She's like, I don't know. It's fine. I was like, all right, well, so your mom comes back tomorrow. I really think you should wash this off. Really, really think you should. She was like, no, it's fine. It'll come off on its own. It's marker. And I'm like, I was like, no, listen, I can't tell you why. I don't know why mom will be upset, but I guarantee you the moment she walks through the door, the first thing she says is, what is that on your face?
It's so funny because all the moms right now are listening to this like, girl, like I know you were hot, just because as a mom, we leave and you leave the kids with dad and you come back and you're like, what has happened to my children?
Right. And I tried to tell her, she's like, no, it'll be fine. I'm like, okay, just know I tried to tell you. When you walked through the door, you literally dropped your bags and laid into her.
I went off. I said, listen, I walked in, y'all. My child is looking like 21 Savage Lil Wayne. I said, what is this? She's like, it's a knife. No. No, literally. I'm not even, she literally looks at me and she's like, it's a cross. And I was like, ma'am. I was like, what is even your religion? Walk me through right now. And she's sitting here. And the thing is, she does identify Christian, but she doesn't know why that's on her forehead. She doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm over here saying like, I'm looking around. See, look at me tapping into the emotion again. I'm looking around like, who is letting my baby go out here with drawings on her face? I am working so hard. And understand, everybody caught strays, okay? It wasn't just her. I said to her, first of all, you go wash your face, right? Go wash your face. And she's looking at me like, I don't know what's happening. But she knew what was happening. Went and go wash her face. And then I look at you and Dea, our eldest one, and I'm like, why would you two let her out of the house like this? I was like, I am raising a young Black woman in America who is already subject to so many unnecessary stereotypes, not to mention is developing her understanding around religion, faith, all these other pieces. we have to explain to her why this isn't happening. Also, what if she went, it's a public school, right? So they're under different parameters. What if she went to school and they were like, is this gang related? Is this...
Because there's rappers and gamers who are getting the same tattoos that you see on TV.
She just thinks she could draw on her face? Like, we don't know what this may represent. You know, you have literally sent her out into the world with something she doesn't understand that could have made her exposed to God knows what.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we have to have those considerations.
And so when you, I didn't know why you were upset, you know, until we talked about it afterwards. I was like, hey, I know it was going to make you upset, but what was it about it specifically? Because I actually don't know. I just
and you're really good about that.
I just knew it was going to be a problem.
Yes. I love that. You're like, I know this is going to be a problem.
Right.
I don't know
I was
why.
Just sitting there while you were laying in her. I was just like, like I knew this was gonna happen.
But she knew also.
And she kept looking back at me like, damn, you were right.
You were right. And the thing is, she's so smart and she's so mature and she's so good about that. But because she's stubborn, she likes to learn from experience. Right. Virgo energy.
And in that moment, you know, when you explained it to me, I was like, oh, wow, like I really am, you know, parenting a Black kid. I need to switch my thinking to protect them, because as a white person, I'm not thinking about these certain racial considerations, you know, about world perception and all that kind of stuff.
And I will say, to your credit, because we talked about children, but at that point we were engaged, not married, but we talked about that, you know, I was like, look, I'll be aware from this point forward, any children we have will be Black in America. Right. Right.
But you're
thinking the big things. You're thinking, what will I do the day they come home and someone calls them the N-word for the first time? Those are the biggies where you're like, well, here's how I'll handle it. But it's the little ones. It's the nuances, you know?
Or like certain discriminations or police issues. Like I'm just, you know, like those are the ones I'm aware of, but it's also little things and getting ahead of it. Even you don't think as a kid that they're going to run into stuff, but they do. But they do. And like even things like you described, you know, someone's kid running around with the basketball team playing hide and go seek in the dark around the neighborhood. Stuff like that. And it's like, as a little Black boy, you know, you can't be hopping fences in people's backyards. You can't be running around people's yards.
No, you can't
at nighttime, because tragedies have happened just as a Black kid walking down a neighborhood, period. Let alone running on people's properties.
Absolutely.
And,
you know,
and so
real.
I've had to switch my thinking. So in terms of like, if I was a white woman, there was a lot I wouldn't have to think about if I was a white woman.
Listen, y'all see why I'm married to him.
But if I was with a white woman, there's all these kinds of things I wouldn't have to think about.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, and it's true. Like, unfortunately, it starts very early on, you know? So these are I guess the way that I don't get to have or benefit or escape other bags of things, I have other things. So like, you know, when our child is in kindergarten, granted, we're in California, we're fortunate enough to have, so California is weird. It's diverse, but it's, and progressive in a lot of ways, but the diversity doesn't necessarily extend to Blackness. So like people here will often say, oh yeah, no, it's like very diverse, but you'll go into a room and you'll still be the only Black person. It's just that there might also be Latin American people, there may be Japanese, you know, like there may be a variety, you know, but which is, I will say, nice, right? But I still crave Blackness because I came from Atlanta, I came from DC, like it's different, you know? But going to our children may be in a diverse school, but they may have the darkest skin on the playground at kindergarten. And if the kids are like, well, you can't play because you're darker skinned, they may not even mean that in a racist way, but literally here you've got a 5-year-old who is having attention called to them for something that they, you know, have zero control over, right? You know, that we now have to have a conversation about at 5 with the 5-year-old level of understanding that you have never had to deal with.
And every culture has a version of this, you know, like no matter what it is. I mean, like there's even, you know, there's this half Japanese, half white artist, you know, that I know. And she was talking about dealing with issues of knowing where to belong. Sure. Like in Japan, she's considered white because she's half white, half Japanese. Right. In America, she's looked at as
100%
Asian,
Japanese,
as Asian Japanese because she doesn't look all the way white. So it's like, where does she
stand? And you're right. Every culture does have versions of it. I will say that the history within America and, you know, the deep-seated racism that comes from being identified as Black is just a different animal.
Yeah.
You know?
And the overall answer is that it shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter.
But it does.
But it does.
But it does, which is what we're talking about here, where we're like, look.
When people say, I don't see color, I don't see race.
Then please do.
it's dumb.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's dumb.
Yeah, because it does matter.
Don't pretend
it's
like
here.
it doesn't exist.
And we need you too. You know what I mean? Which is why, like, in our partnership, you know, when people say to me, what is it like being in an interracial relationship during tough times like the election? I'm glad I'm in a relationship with Alex, because when I said to him, and I'll just say it candidly, you know, I remember after that point feeling very confused, very, you know, I think sharing an emotion that a lot of Black women felt, you know, because 92% of us voted for Harris. You know what I mean? So it was pretty clear kind of where we went, you know, and I talked about that a couple chats ago. But also feeling a little shaky and saying to myself, is this one of those moments where if I was with a Black man, it would feel different?
Mm-hmm.
You know, would there be like, and I said it to you. You know, I said it to you. I said, look, I just want you to know this is what I'm feeling. And I wonder, you know, if there's a comfort, because I feel myself craving the safety of being surrounded by Blackness right now. I felt that also during the pandemic, you know, with, you know, all the, I don't know, performative racial reconciliation. I don't know what else to call it at this point. And I remember that what was really nice about our relationship was you looked at me and you were like, you know, I hold space for this. I recognize that I may not be enough in this moment, but I'll be whatever I can be for you, you know? And in that moment, I realized that while I felt like I might have been craving something I didn't even know, what I had was more than enough, because you were exactly what I needed in that moment, which was just to feel safe and have a place to be heard and to feel comforted, you know? And that was meaningful. Yeah. So what is it like to be in an interracial relationship for you, Alex?
Awesome.
We're like all these struggles and
all
blah,
these struggles,
blah, blah.
but it's sick.
No, on the day-to-day, I don't think about it much.
It's not I don't think about it being an interrelationship. It's just a relationship.
It's just a relationship.
It's a relationship
on the day-to-day.
It's not a consideration on day-to-day.
Most
Sometimes
of the time
stuff comes up, but like, you know, not because of internal factors usually.
I was just about to say that most of the time it's an issue because externally, you know, and the way the world's moving, eventually we're all going to look Filipino. That's what they say on the thing. Like when you look up photos of like what's the world going to look like in like 2060, it's just we're all going to look like a little, because there's such a huge Asian population.
Right.
We're all going to look a little bit Asian. We're going to have toasty skin, you know, all that good stuff.
Right.
So ain't nothing wrong with that.
Whatever.
I love you so much. Thank you for taking the time out to chat about this. And I know that it's, you know, can be tense for people or weird. And, you know, again, I just
like I said, that forthrightness.
Right. I don't
talk about it. I don't care.
Yeah, I just, you know, letting people into the conversation. And then obviously I'm open to any feedback. You guys can hit me up in the DMs all over social. And then I just want to double down and emphasize, and I'll probably put it in the show notes, this is just our take. Right? Like other people might say it is hard for us. And if you had asked me about this in previous relationships I've had that are interracial, it would be a different conversation, because I have had a different experience with every person I've dated, partly because of who the person is and partly because of racial issues, either from their parents or whatever else. So maybe that's a solo episode for a different day, you know, but where I am right now, I'm grateful to be with you, you know, if nothing else. I love you so much.